Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss conditionals, a very important grammatical aspect of improving communication. These conditionals play a very important role in improving our proficiency in speaking English. So let's get started. Okay, today, as I told you, we are talking about conditionals and let's see what these conditionals are. Conditional sentences state that something will happen if something else happens. That means there are two possible things which happen when we talk about conditionals. For example, if it rains, the lawn gets wet. Second example, you will be informed if the meeting is confirmed. So if you notice these two statements, there are two things which are being discussed in the sentences. If it rains, the lawn gets wet. That means the condition is it should rain so that the lawn gets wet. And then you will be informed if the meeting is confirmed. So let us discuss these statements in detail. So look at these examples. Let us talk about these examples. If it rains, the lawn gets wet. There are two parts in the sentence and these parts are called clauses. So I think that you are aware of what clauses are. Clauses are the part of a sentence. They are the part of a sentence. They are also called as the mini sentences. That means they have their own subject and predicate. So if you take the sentence, if it rains is one part and it is called as a clause. The lawn gets wet is another part which is called as a clause. So the clause which is attached to the conditional if, that means it is an if clause. And the clause which is not attached to if, that is called as the main clause. And main clauses are always independent, though they do not depend upon any other clauses for the completion of the meaning. See, the lawn gets wet. We understand, okay, the lawn gets wet. At the same time, if you say, if it rains, then okay, the subject is there, verb is there. But the meaning, logically, the sentence, we are not able to understand. It has to depend upon the main clause for the completion of the meaning. So this part is called as the if clause and the next part is called as the main clause. Second sentence, you will be informed if the meeting is confirmed. So viewers, from now onwards, we are discussing conditionals and this is a very important aspect of conditionals because we are going to discuss these two clauses. These two clauses play a very significant role in discussion of conditional. So only thing you have to understand is there is an if clause and there is a main clause. Let us move on to the next session. So there are 5 types of conditionals on the basis of degree of possibility. So whenever we talk about conditional, there is a degree of possibility. Sometimes, the possibility is more and sometimes the possibility is likely and sometimes the possibility is impossible, unreal. So let us discuss these 5 types of conditionals based upon the degree of possibility. The first one is called as the zero conditional. Second one is called as the first conditional and the second conditional, the third conditional, and then the mixed conditional. So let us talk about the zero conditional. The zero conditional talks about the general truths and the first conditional talks about the real and possible situations. In our life, there are some real situations and there are possible situations. So when we discuss this, we use the first type of conditional. The second conditional talks about the unreal and impossible conditional. So, and the third conditional talks about the imaginary past condition and its result. So sometimes we go into an imagination. So these sentences use the third conditional, and the last one is the mixed conditional, which talks about the unreal past and the possible result in the present. So these are the 5 important conditionals we have to understand thoroughly. Let us go into the examples and try to understand these conditionals. Okay, the first one, as I told you, is the zero conditional, and it talks about the general truths. So, for example, the water boils if the temperature reaches to 100 degrees Celsius. It's a common thing. We all know that this is a very possible condition. So, if you divide the sentence into two types of clauses, as I told you, the if clause is if the temperature reaches to 100 degrees Celsius, the water boils. It's a universal truth. Wherever you try to boil the water and take it, take the temperature to 100 degrees, then the water automatically starts boiling and then evaporation begins. So if you look at the verbs in these two type of conditionals, the first conditional if clause, if you take, it is reaches, which is in present tense or simple present tense. And the next main clause, if you take, the water boils, then the boils is also in the simple present tense. So the tenses play a very important role in meaning making. Viewers, all of you have to bear this in the mind. Depending upon the tenses, you will categorize these conditionals into the 5 types which I have mentioned. So the first zero conditional is called as a general truths. So whichever happens for good and for reality, they are all categorized as general truths, and always in both the clauses, the verbs are in simple present tense. Next one. The second type is called as the first conditional. Many grammarians call it as the first conditional, and they are related to real and possible situations. For example, you will be informed if the holidays are declared. So you will be informed is the main clause. If the holidays are declared is the if clause. And look at the verbs in these two types of clauses. Are declared is in simple present tense. Will be informed is in simple future tense. So in these type of conditionals, we have to remember that in the real and possible situations, the if clause will take the present tense and the main clause will take the future tense. This is the combination for this kind of conditionals. You will be informed if the holidays are declared. So you must be in a position to understand the if clause and the main clause. Moving on to the next type of clause, the second conditional. Many of the grammarians like to call it as the second conditional, which are related to unreal and impossible conditions. So these conditionals are unreal, which will never happen. At least at the time of speaking, they cannot be real. For example, if I were the Prime Minister of India, I would put an end to examination system. So I cannot be the Prime Minister of India right now. At the time of speaking, it is an unreal situation and an impossible situation. At the same time, if you take the main clause, I would put an end to examination system also is an impossible thing. Unless and until I become the Prime Minister, I cannot take up this kind of activity. And look at the verbs. Verbs are very important from the examination point of view. Yes, all of you have to remember, as degree students, you are going to attempt your examination and the questions are mainly based upon these verbs. So you have to identify the tense of the verb and then classify the given sentences into these 5 types of conditionals. And if I were the bird, I would fly in the air. Neither can I become a bird, neither I can fly in the air. So these are unreal and impossible conditions. And look at the verbs. If you see the first if clause, the verb is in past tense, were. And all of you please remember, you cannot use the singular verb was. If I was a bird, if I was a prime minister, it is incorrect. All of you have to remember that you have to use only the plural kind, plural form of the past tense were. If I were the prime minister, if I were a bird, if I were a millionaire, all the unreal and impossible conditions have to be denoted with this kind of verb, though it is singular. If she and he also, if you are using, if he were the famous cricketer, or if he were the prime minister, if she were the Nightingale of India. So even if you are using the singular subjects also, the verb should be were. And then look at the next type of verb in the main clause. Main clause, it will be would fly. Would plus verb. So verb also in the simple present. So if I were a bird, I would fly in the air. I would put an end. So all these verbs have to become in a combination with would. So this is the third type of conditional. Now next, move on to the next type of conditional, the third conditional. Usually the present day grammarians prefer to call it as the third conditional. They are related, or they refer to the imaginary past condition and the past result. Both the condition is in the past and the result also in the past. Example, if you had tried, you could have done it. That means you have not tried it and you were not able to do it. Both the actions are completed in the past. So they are denoted like this. If you had tried, you could have done it. And look at the verb in the if clause. If clause, it is had tried. Had tried is past perfect. And then the main clause is could have plus past participle, done. You could have done, you could have gone, you could have passed, you could have secured, you could have won the race. So all these combinations are denoted in the third type of conditional, that is imaginary past and the imaginary past result. Both the actions are over, and there is a kind of an element of regret here. Yes. So action is completed and you sit and regret. I should have done that, or if I had tried this, if I had worked hard, I could have passed the examination with flying colors. So these are all past actions which denote the imaginary past and the imaginary past result. Moving on to the next conditional, that is the last one, the mixed conditional. Look at the degree of possibility. First, it was a truth. It was a universal truth. Then gradually the degree of possibility is decreasing, if you have noticed here. And then the tenses are also getting changed. And mixed conditional, it is related to the unreal past and a probable result in the present. That is the difference between the last conditional and this conditional, viewers. I hope you have noticed it. That was the imaginary result in the past, and this is the imaginary result in the present. So if you had worked harder, you would have a better job now. So the action is completed in the past, but you are talking about the result at present. So, and the verbs had worked. The if clause has had worked, that is in the past perfect, and the main clause, you have the construction like would or could or might or plus and plus have. So would have a better job, could have a better job, or might have a better job. So this is the combination. Hope you are getting it. So these are the 5 conditions, and let us look at the gist of these 5 types of conditionals. I quickly go through the gist. The first conditional talks about the general truths, and that is called as the zero conditional. Next, the first conditional talks about the real and possible situations. And next, the second conditional talks about the unreal and impossible conditionals. And then the next conditional is called as a third conditional, which talks about the imaginary past condition and the past result. And the last one, mixed conditional, talks about the unreal past and the possible result in the present. So let us look at the verbs also. This is the chart I have prepared for you all, so that it gives the entire summary of the conditionals. You will never get confused in the examination. Just memorize this chart. The zero conditional talks about the general truths, and then the if clause has the simple present and the main clause has got the simple present verbs. And then the first conditional talks about the real and possible situations, and the if clause has simple present and the main clause has the simple future, will be, shall be. Then the next clause is called as a second conditional, talks about unreal and impossible conditionals, and the verbs are simple past in the if clause and then would plus verb in the main clause. The third conditional talks about the imaginary past condition and then the imaginary past result. And the verb in the if clause is past perfect, that means had plus verb. And then the main clause has could have plus past participle. Then the last one is the mixed conditional, which refers to the unreal past and the probable result in the present. And the verb in the if clause is past perfect, that means had plus verb. And then the main clause has got would or could or might plus have. So these are the 5 conditionals. You have to remember the verb form so that you can do well in the examination. So from the examination point of view, this chart is very, very important. Try to memorize it. Okay, that was about conditionals. If you really felt this video made sense, please hit that like button, share and subscribe. And if you have any comments or any clarifications or any queries, please do not hesitate to put them in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to clarify all your queries. Thank you. Bye-bye and see you in the next video. The next video, I'm going to solve the exercises which are there in your textbook. Bye-bye. Take care.